Okay, so when we talk about solutioning, there are four key elements, five if you count past performance, that you need to have a firm grasp of to give it structure. So when we look at solutioning, we look at being prepared for competitive environments. The first thing you have to do is you have to attack the problem from the perspective of the government. So there's this bias that we all have. We walk in, we start talking about our differentiators and our capabilities. Rather, the first paragraph of everybody's solution should articulate what the government's problem is. In doing that, it forces you to solution against what that problem is. And it also level sets the government review to understand what problem you're trying to solve. If you jump right into solutioning without having a statement of the problem you're solving, the government might not be reading from the same sheet of music you are. They might think their problems are completely different, but at least by you articulating what problem you're solving, you'll avoid the disconnect of we didn't think your solution solved our problem, because you're stating what their problem is. They might disagree with your analysis of what the problem is, but that's a completely different argument than just speaking about what the problem is and solving it blindly. The second key part of this is when you do solutioning, everybody, realize it or not, your solution and my solution are going to be 60% similar. If we're all writing to the same scope of work, same section C, odds are we're all discussing the same points. It's critical, once you've outlined the government's problem, that you also articulate why your solution is unique. Maybe you have personnel that comes from this line of work, has specific subject matter expertise, have a lesson learned from a prior project that's similar, or maybe a lesson learned from a project that wasn't even remotely close, but it's so out of the box thinking that it helps to solve the problem. You need to frame your solution in a manner that gives you unique differentiation before you start going into the blocking and tackling of what your actual approach is. So if you define the problem, if you talk about how you're differentiated and how you're solving the problem, then it sets up your ability to comply and differentiate, which is basically what are your win themes in solving the problem. So I'm sure you've all heard the discussion of win themes before. When you talk about compliance versus differentiation, that's when your win themes come in, because you've already established the problem. You've already articulated how you're unique in solving that problem. You're going to give uniqueness in that description. And then the third piece is how you're going to be differentiate but compliant in terms of what your win themes are to solve the problem. And then once you effectively do, and that can be done in 2 sentences or less, mind you. And a key point of that, in some instances, it's okay to use quotes or references from customers that indicated how you solved the problem. So it just doesn't have to be you saying it or providing a proof point. The proof point can be somebody else said you did a great job, and you can certainly put the quote in there. So that's the third data point. Fourth point is staffing and management plan are as much a part of the P-win process as your price or your past performance. And so when you think about it, you're always, again, solving a specific problem defined by the government. So you always want to revert back to your staffing plan and your management plan to what key challenges you're solving in that plan. So for example, in staffing plan, they might have to go through a DHS suitability process. That suitability process might take 90 days. The government might only give you a 60-day transition period. Obviously, you articulating that within your solutioning demonstrates A, an understanding of the process, B, an articulation of the problem, and C, how you're going to innovatively come up with a solution on that timing issue. And so those type of examples are what really needs to be dropped in when you talk about your staffing plan or your management plan, and how A, you're differentiating yourself, but B, you're always tying it back to the problem that you described. And lastly, and we'll get into it in greater detail, the past performance. My belief, and we do 500 proposals a year, is that a lot of firms use the past performance in a very generic format. Our past performance really doesn't change, right? I mean, if you're doing 3, 4, 5, 6 projects, you're probably using the same past performance for most of your bids. The problem is you're not customizing the past performance with the context of why it's relevant to what you're bidding on. And so we'll get into that a little bit and some tools that I can provide you all, but really making sure your past performance is not just, scope relevant. Hey, this is an IT contract to do X. We did X over here. So yes, we can do it over there. You really need to speak to the size, the scope, the complexity, the magnitude of what you did for agency A and why it's relevant to agency B. And so again, I have some tools and templates to provide you all that will streamline that process so you're not, trying to figure it out as you go. So That's pretty much the solutioning roadmap. And again, I'll provide you all copies, but it's written in such a way that this is designed to be a reference manual as much as a presentation. So please don't feel like you have to absorb everything that's written here. It's designed for you all to refer to it as you go.